Oh, that's difficult because there are hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands. That's one of the good things about growing older, is that you've read so many books. I
Yes.
think one that I read again is Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I love that.
Yeah.
And there's the Mort d'Arthur, which is a medieval version of the Arthurian legends. And I love the stories of medieval knights and the tangle of the emotional mess that they got into with Lancelot being in love with the Queen. And I go back to that as well. So that's two.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I could write a big list. I'll send your teacher a big list. Really good question. I always stop writing at the point where I know what's going to happen next. So that means when I sit down again, I get straight into the zone
Oh,
because
that's smart.
I'm excited about what's coming next. So I don't write it all out. I don't just keep going until I've finished everything in my mind for that bit. I
Yeah.
stop just at that point where I think, yep, I'll do that tomorrow. They're different. And I use photography to get something in a hurry that makes me feel good, because I can, even when I spend time on a shoot, it can take 2 or 3 days. But one of my historical novels takes 2 years. And can you imagine, you've got a project that you're not going to see finished for 2 years? I have two. And they're Watson, who's called after Dr. Watson in the Sherlock Holmes stories. And I used to have his friend Sherlock, so I had Sherlock and Watson. But Sherlock, I'm afraid, grew very old, and we lost him a year ago. And so we got a puppy. So we've now got Watson and the new puppy, who is called Artemis, because she's a hunting dog breed, and the Artemis is the goddess of the hunt. So we've got our own goddess. Lots of role models, and the books that spoke to me were fantasy books when I was a child. I loved the Narnia stories, and I loved Aslan in the Narnia stories, and I read non-stop. And I was a very lonely little girl, I think. My little sister really got on my nerves, and she got, the way I saw it, she got all the attention. And so I just went to read my books, and I couldn't have a dog because we moved all the time. So I just read and read and read. And I think that's helpful if you want to be an author. The more books you read, the more you're taking in storytelling. And I still read loads and loads and loads of books. But I suppose I wanted somebody to read my stories. That's the bit where you suddenly decide you want someone to read your stories. And that changes you from writing to yourself to becoming an author and writing for other people. What's your favorite type of photo to look at?
I like nature photos a lot.
Yeah, there's so many of them now. I want people to look at nature again, and all my books are about nature at the moment. So it's how to make people see it fresh. That's good. I've seen many different kinds of education because I was in the classroom for 25 years in different ways. And I think uh, when you ask a teacher, what do you teach? What I like the teacher to say is students, because it's not about the subject. It's about the people who are in your classroom, and about critical thinking. And the knowledge you get from school will be old-fashioned by next week because everything changes. But the way of thinking that you get from school stays with you for a lifetime. I've translated some books from French into English. So I've translated two dog training books, of course, and that's how I met my dog trainer friend. And I translated a book about Edith Piaf's life. She was a singer in the old days, a French singer. There's a little bit of land behind our house, an orchard, and there've been beehives on the land there for a long time. And we managed to buy that bit of land. So can you imagine, you get this little bit of land with trees, and we've got wild boar and hares and deer all visit, and the beehive was already there, but nobody had looked after it. So we had a broken down beehive with bees in it. And what I did was sign up with a local beekeeper to do a course, because I didn't know anything about bees. And when I was younger, I was interested in beekeeping, but I asked a beekeeper, how can you keep bees and not get stung? And he looked at me like I was stupid and said, you do get stung, but you get used to it. Now I'm going to tell you something that I haven't told anybody else in public ever. I have amazing dreams. So sleeping is actually the same as writing, except I don't write it down. But it's fuel for writing, because I sometimes dream whole stories. So I wake up and I can remember a whole murder story or a whole fantastic story. So sleeping is really, really important. Lovely question, because I write about the 12th century, and I feel like I live there when I'm writing about it, because it takes me a year to do the research and find out about the times. And there's so much you have to imagine, because we haven't got information about even the people of those times. So I would definitely go back to the 12th century. And what I like about medieval France at that time, in the south of France, women had a lot of power, and I didn't know that. So there were women who could inherit, who could run their kingdoms, and that wasn't true in the north. So it would have to be the south of France in the 12th century, definitely. I loved your stories, so I wanted to visit you again just to tell you what I thought of them all, because it was great to read them, and different people are going to read them and like different ones. So even though I had to choose a winner, you're all winners. Been lovely visiting your classroom. I hope there's some interesting things about your stories, and that you and about my stories as well, I hope. But it's been a lot of fun, so thank you very much for making me welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.